That would be amazing. We'll put it in the chat.
What was that?
I'm also going to put it in the chat for folks as well.
Cool. So this is an excerpt from my chapter in 100 Diverse Voices on Parenthood from a kid's book about. And my chapter was on being mothered or mothering while being mothered. My mom taught me that being a mother is being a sanctuary. It is holding our kids when they're exhausted, listening to their thoughts without judgment or shame, and encouraging them to experience the wide range of feelings we're all born with, no matter how old we are. Being a mother means giving your kid the confidence to make their dreams come true and admitting that there's no such thing as being a mother is a lifelong journey we may eventually be fortunate enough to share with our own kids.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And what is the publication called that creates these wonderful books?
Yeah, it is a kid's book about, and they're actually a Portland-based company as well. So they have lots of different books on geared towards kids for like around hard topics. The first one was a kid's book about racism. And now they have hundreds and hundreds of books by hundreds and hundreds of authors.
That is amazing. So thank you for sharing your quote. Since we do have a lot of people, I do kind of want to jump right into our presentations. So it is an honor for me to first introduce Cynthia and Lakia, who will be talking about the Black COVID strategy team and give us a brief introduction to the Healthy Together Oregon work that's being done. So go ahead and take it away. Introduce yourselves, names, pronouns, roles, anything that you want to say about yourself in your presentation.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. All right. Good morning. What a pleasure to be here. My name is Cynthia Vimieiro. I use pronouns she, her, and ella. I am currently the Healthier Together Oregon strategist, and I work under the director's office on the public health department. I want to start talking about a little bit what the Healthier Together Oregon strategy is, and I'm also going to give a little I guess background of my previous work that I worked as a community engagement coordinator on the COVID team, primarily serving communities of color, African diaspora, immigrants and refugees, and my experience with behavioral health with this community during the COVID time. So what is the Healthier Together Oregon, short HTO? It is the state health improvement plan. It is a very comprehensive plan. I'll put the link here on the chat as well. But two things that I want to focus on is that I'm going to talk about the priorities, the community priorities that we are focused on the plan, and also some important topics that is really relevant to behavioral health. So our priority populations are Black, Indigenous people, people of color, and American Indian, Alaska Native people. We are focused on people with low income, people with disabilities, people living in rural areas of the state, people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, and immigrants and refugee. With those priority populations, we have 5 priority topics that impact these populations the most. One being institutional bias. The second one be adversity, trauma, and toxic stress. The third one, what is relevant to this community here, is behavioral health. With a sad stats to say, Oregon has one of the highest rates of mental illness of the country. And I want us to pause on this for just a second, and I'm going to read it again. Oregon has one of the highest rates of mental illness in the country. The fourth one that the Healthier Together organ focus on is economic drivers of health, such as housing, transportation, and living wage jobs, and access to equitable prevent health care, what is also linked in a way with behavioral health, right? So now I would just move a little bit, and we're going to have my colleague just expanding a little more on the Healthier Together organ, like I said, because it's a very expensive plan. But what I really want to focus the conversation today is my experience as a community engagement coordinator team lead on the COVID team. So during COVID, I worked with a lot of families. I talked with a lot of families on every day. And one thing that was very eye-opening and really hard to hear for me is when I was talking to a lot of families during the time that Oregon has shut down and the schools have gone online. A lot of families, they don't have internet in their homes. A lot of families don't have a cell phone. During that time, I had talked to folks, parents that have their kids at home is struggling with mental health issues because they were away from their friends, because they could not have access to mental health professionals. They were adept to talk to families. They are immigrants, refugees, or they were culturally trained to speak with families. Also, language access was a huge issue because, as we know, a lot of folks, they don't have English as their primary language. You can tell for myself, I have an accent, so English is my second language as well. So I'm very familiar with that piece. When you try to find a provider that understands you, where you're coming from, and it's better if you can talk in your own language to express, especially problems with mental health. And when those families, parents were sharing with me their kids, young kids, having suicidal thoughts, their teenage kids being depressed, and affecting not only the kids, but affecting the parents as well. So I just want us to think about that because it's a huge issue within our states, and we assume, right? So when that everybody has access to internet, we assume that everybody is a tech savvy. A lot of those parents that weren't. So we unfortunately is going to see a huge gap when it comes to education, but also with how are we going to address the behavioral health issues of those families and kids if right now we don't have the appropriate culturally and language specific work professionals and access to those folks, especially in rural and frontier areas here in Oregon. It has been an eye-opening to me and very hard to acknowledge that we have those kids that need access and we not yet have that to provide. So I'm going to stop here because we have a lot of other people to talk to today. And I'm also going to put my email on the chat and the link for Healthier Together Oregon. If you have any questions or if you want to talk more about the communities that I served, please, you have my email, and pleasure meeting you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And is Lakia in space to continue this conversation? I will give it a second. All right, fabulous. If they're able to join, then I will add that back in. But really, thank you for introducing us in this way, because what these conversations that we've had in these spaces have really shown that there is such a thing as collective impact. Today, you see a lot of folks from not only public health, but specific groups around public health and Healthy Together Oregon and behavioral health and community members and youth serving organizations. You see African American parents and peers and members of the diaspora. You see representatives from CPOP. This is a community effort, and all of the experiences of our youth and young adults and our youth and families that contribute to mental health are so much more complex than just addressing one system barrier or addressing one bullet point on a strategic plan. It's recognizing the generations and the history and the trauma, but also having a really intentional focus on what has been going on. Give me a sec here. I do want to read a letter from a dear colleague of mine that really kind of puts statistics into that collective impact. Give me 1 second, I'm about to get a sip of water. My wonderful and brilliant colleague says, the school to prison pipeline has impacted Black boys at a much higher rate than their counterparts. The school to prison pipeline refers to disproportionate punishment of students of color, Black and Latinx, that begins with more serious punishment than their white counterparts, which increases the chances of intervention by suspension, school detention, expulsions. Black boys in Oregon are 3 times more likely to be suspended than white boys and are 2 times more likely to be expelled than white students for the same offense. Black youth are often disciplined at higher rates for being disruptive in class, which negatively impacts their learning, growth, and development. According to Oregon's 2022 Educator Equity Report, 84.7% of the staff within public schools are white, and only 1.1% identifies as Black. The school to prison pipeline has impacted Black boys at a much higher rate than their counterpoints. Black boys in oops, I think I already, give me 1 second. Let me make sure that I got this data. Oh, yeah, I think that was it. I think those were the data points. And so here, I just want to start by kind of setting the stage of collective impact, how both these percentages that we're seeing in the school to prison pipeline and in representation and in mental health and in intervention time points and in youth representation and councils, in our youth and family representations and councils, how are we reaching our strategic goals within each of our teams, if we're OHA or if we're any government employee, if we are folks who are serving the communities in the school district, how are we recognizing our collective impact? I am going to pass the stage now to, again, it is an honor to have all of these presenters here. Tori, take it away. Tori will be talking about the presence of systemic oppression that results in African American and Native children being removed from their homes at a higher rate, spending longer time in substitute care, and the decreased likelihood of reunification. And again, keeping collective impact in mind, how does this all connect with behavioral health and mental health needs?
Awesome. Thank you for that awesome introduction. Again, my name's Tori Algie, and I'm coming to you on my own time in the capacity of the executive director of a nonprofit that aims to decrease the overrepresentation of Black and Native American children in the foster care system. And so again, collective impact. We just talked about the impacts of the COVID initiatives and how, unfortunately, the people at the table, we didn't have enough representation at the table to represent people of lower economic standards, so that we could possibly make allowances for those folks. It's very important that we do have different and diverse perspectives at the table so that we don't continue to have these blind spots. And unfortunately, in my opinion, we just haven't seen that enough. It's always an afterthought, like, oh, wow, I wish we thought of that. And then the next time it's, oh, wow, I wish we thought of that. Well, we can't keep having that. We have to get ahead of this and be more proactive in our approach. So again, the NHHS National Instances Study has shown since the early 1980s that children of all races and ethnicities are equally likely to be abused or neglected. However, Black and Native American children have been significantly more likely to be represented in the foster care system. Nationally, Black children represent in foster care at 1.64 times their rate than the white majority. However, Oregon's numbers are even worse. In Oregon, Black children are twice as likely as white children to be in foster care. And that's as a state. If you do it county by county, some of the statistics are even more egregious. Studies also show racial disparities exist at every stage of the child welfare decision making. The hotline receives more calls regarding Black families. We're less likely to get the benefit of the doubt. We've seen this play out on the news where majority folks will call the police because people are just existing. Unfortunately, the same is true for the hotline. People are just, unfortunately, minorities are just seen as devious by some. And so they're more likely to be called on. And then there's bias as it relates to referrals from those calls. There's bias as it relates to the child welfare workers who go and assess these. There are implicit biases. I'm not saying necessarily people are going out with the intent to discriminate. A lot of this is implicit bias, but it still exists and it's still showing up and impacting our families. There appears to be a lack of culturally appropriate resources and a lack of appropriate culturally sensitive assessment tools. Also, we found that once Black children enter foster care, they generally receive inferior services and are kept out of their homes for longer periods than their white counterparts. Again, this is all statistically shown and validated. The numbers speak for themselves. The Oregon Department of Human Services has a disproportionate index over the past 3 years. And unfortunately, the trend is going up. In 2019, the disproportionate index for African-American children was 1.5. In 2020, it was 1.7. And in 2021, it was 1.9. It's going in the wrong direction. We have to get ahead of this. We must not sit by idly and allow this to continue. The same is true for American Indian and Alaskan Natives. In 2019, the disproportionate index was 2.9. In 2020, it was 1.3. In 2021, it was 3.3. Again, we are going in the wrong direction. And we must get ahead of this and not allow it to continue. So again, bringing this all back home, all of these things impact our community and they're impacting our community disproportionately. Although foster care is necessary in some instances, it also brings about trauma. 50% of children who leave foster care are homeless by the age of 25. The instances of depression, anxiety are astronomical for children who have gone through the foster care system. And so again, we're not saying that it's not necessary in some instances, but for the instances where it's not, we need to be critical and proactive and ensuring a less a less invasive avenue is taken.
Oh, Tori, thank you so much. It is a blessing to have you in this space. It is an honor to also have our next presenter, Jamar. Jamar, are you here? I see you in the space. Jamar, I just wanted to give you a special shout out for really being one of the leaders of the ERG, or the Black and African American ERGs here at OHA, who really help support and create and facilitate healing for us here who are doing this work. Jamar is here to present. Let me pull up my notes because that long COVID kind of messed with my memory. The importance of life coaching, mentorship, and Black fatherhood. We just want to announce that life coaching and mentorship is pivotal regarding multiracial families with Black children who are disconnected from cultural community, and acknowledging that there is an importance of shared family experience of Blackness as crucial to identity development, belonging, and safety. Jamar, take it away.
Thank you, thank you. Grand rising to you all. I am Jamar Summerfield, president and accountant for a Foundation of Black American Father of Four, and I'm the co-founder and co-chair of the Black African American Employee Resource Group. My vision started with the email creation. It was SOSLifeWorks22 at iCloud.com. My mission was to play liaison to youth and derailed adults who needed a springboard of thought. And I put boots on the ground in 2005 organically. In that time, I aided in expunging 252 community members' criminal records and had 28 people on the governor's desk for the pardon in December of 2022. I take pride in knowing that I helped reduce recidivism rate here in the inner city of Northeast Portland, Multnomah County. I am joining you today to speak about culturally specific youth and family mentorship and life coaching, both of which are pivotal when you have multiracial families. Specifically, I would like to spotlight the Black and brown children with a Black father or mother living outside the main household, which can further disconnect the child from the Black community. The shared family experience focuses on the value and importance of all cultures and families members in the child's life. The experience is crucial for the supporting healthy development and sense of belonging and safety. Youth and family mentorship and life coaching that is culture specific can provide education and support to children and parents experiencing challenges and needing of guidance. And I would reference Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said what she said. I hope that a wise Latina woman with the richness of her experiences would more often than not reach a better conclusion than a white male who hasn't lived that life. That being said, I'd like to share an example to illuminate one of the many ripples that can occur for multiracial families with parents living in separate households and how a mentor and life coach could support them. In Oregon, data shows that most teachers K through 12 are white. It's not difficult to see how this may influence a multiracial child who could grow up second guessing information from Black adults. For example, the teacher can instruct the child that 1 + 1 = 2, but the mom or dad with a different identity who is living in the household disagrees and says 1 + 1 = 3. The child may be more inclined to believe the mom or dad in the home who was their first teacher. But the outside the household parent that is Black can give the exact solutions of the teacher and not be considered the subject matter expert or the go-to. Now, alternatively, when the Black parent isn't in the child's life or living in the same house or home as the child, the dominant white culture is considered objective by default. And that thought becomes law in the head of the child. A life coach mentor with lived experience about the culturally specific ways of navigating through life can pair with child once a week on a Zoom call to provide fellowship, understanding, and life experience to the questions that the child comes up with. Additionally, a life coach mentor could provide a after school debrief for the child in partnership with a parent and both parents to work through barriers and challenges for the child and highlight opportunities for learning and growth, all while providing the cultural specific support. The debrief should and can happen on the weekends. Also, having open access to calling the life coach mentor at an agreed upon time will be helpful because you can reach someone outside of the brick and mortar meetings. Recruitment can be contracted out to bring in support for the Black community despite the regional limitations in the state. I know we must go outside of the rural areas in Oregon to recruit Black life coaches, mentors for that community as well. The youth are still present in these areas and need support. In closing, life coaching and mentors must be included in policy creation and supporting Black mental health. Sufficient funding to increase these opportunities is a much needed addition to the greater health of Black Oregonians and our future leaders. Thank you for allowing me this space to tell my truth.
Thank you, Jamar. Thank you so much. I'm going to give us a moment to sit and just kind of collect our energy, to soak in the information that has been said by all of these wonderful people. I want to give an option to any of the members of the ERG who are not on the agenda that was created to speak if you would like to. Oh my goodness, look at that cute baby. To speak if you would like to, just to add to the space. And then once we do that at about, let's see here. Ever since my computer updated, navigating is a little bit difficult. At about 10:45, we're going to have Kendall come in and be our next speaker. So again, this is a space where you can stretch your body, you can kind of move around a little bit, refill your coffee, and I would love to just hear how folks who, again, from the ERG here at OHA would like to maybe highlight some work around how behavioral health and, again, that cross-system collective impact is so important here in our community and in this space.
Just thank you guys for all the compliments. AJ definitely represents who we're talking about. These are the kids who are impacted by our system.
So again, we can actually, since this is also just casual conversation and break time until 10:45, we could stop recording. I got super again, collective impact, really coming together, breaking silos, really holding on to our teams that are out there and connected and building relationships with youth and families in specific regions, culturally specific folks who really are here to address this. I'm going to pass my mic to a wonderful, brilliant human. Again, all of these folks are beautiful and brilliant. Kendall, if you would like to join in, this is your spot.
You're
Oh,
on mute, Kendall.
you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Oh no, you're muted again.
How about now?
Perfect.
Ah, all right. Thanks for inviting me to this space. I am off today, but when I had heard about opportunity to talk about these different really critical pieces for our community, I, of course, joined. I think that's one of the pieces that we need in leaning into community care is, I mean, that's I think one of the most beautiful things about communities of color. My name is Kendall Batiste-Ball. I use she, her pronouns, and I work within OHA's behavioral health, the intensive services unit and behavioral health, specifically focused on building out residential and working around the policies of what's missing for housing, residential services for our individuals who are mandated by the courts for treatment around mental health. So people under aid and assist, civil commitment, PSRB, all the people at the Oregon State Hospital, and a lot of people who are living outside. For me, this work has been driven by a deep pain in seeing another one of those pieces where it's the, it's the pipeline piece. In Multnomah County, Black and Brown folks are disproportionately sent to jail for mental health symptoms than to hospitals for treatment. Black and brown skin is criminalized, and it doesn't matter if it's the same behavior that you see other folks who are not folks of color, so white folks, exhibiting the same behaviors, but get help in treatment versus criminalized. If you are under one of those orders, like aid and assist, it actually is not designed to provide treatment. It is only designed to stabilize you to face your charges. I continued in this work after seeing Black and brown bodies being stripped of their rights over and over again. A lot of young folks, folks that the system never supported or intervened for as far as mental health services and treatment go, that actually form their identities. I, growing up here in Portland, had a extremely challenging time feeling seen, feeling heard, going to all white schools with mostly white teachers who didn't care about the accomplishments and achievements of the beautiful communities that make up our whole state that are not just white. I struggled really hard. I mean, academically, I always did really well, but I struggled with teachers who were racist. I struggled with peers who would make jokes about me playing slave roles. Struggled with teachers punishing me for wearing perfume to school, which was actually just my hair product. And struggled all the way to high school, where I really struggled to figure out how I was going to continue to live like that. I wanted to seek out mental health treatment for myself, but it was something that was really like not something we can trust. And still to this day, I don't know that it's something that a lot of folks of color can and should trust until there is more of a commitment to doing it differently, not a it's good enough type of approach. And for me, a program that was incredibly impactful was a program called REAP, which is Reaching Empowering All People. It's still around. My year at school in Grant High School was the pilot, and that program saved my life. It was a Black Studies class. It built community. I was able to be seen and heard in my educational experience, and it pushed a lot of the folks in that group had so much internalized depression, didn't believe we could do anything or be anything, and just having support and community in that setting changed everything. I don't think I would be here today without it. somebody actually caring about youth. I'm on the adult side right now, trying to help figure out how to build in prevention services. But all youth work is prevention work, all of it. There's not a more important need to pay attention to what is available for our youth. And what I see with the adults is all of the missed opportunities where something could have been done, something could have been offered, services should have been created, access should have been made, schools should have cared. And I don't know what it's going to take in this state. It's really, really difficult to have something always be kind of like a side note, or like if it works out, or a tagline, or a thing that people say, like this is people's lives. And it deeply matters that we prioritize, we slow down, and we do it different if we're invested at all in our youth having a future. The emotional labor that our youth are carrying, the parents are carrying, as we struggle to, after hundreds of years, figure out how to do this differently. It's unacceptable. And I think that, we are going to have to earn, like we as in the state, the counties, all of the government entities are going to have to earn back the trust of the communities. It's going to be work, it's going to take hard, and it is worth it. We are in a crisis, high rates of suicide in our young, particularly Black boys. And we can't keep doing what we're doing. It is so deeply important that there is something different. And a saying I like that Dr. Chandra Kumnika, I always tell myself this thing is, all you have to do for this system to have it keep doing what it's doing and operating in a form of white supremacy is to do nothing. It does it on its own. We have to interrupt it. Doesn't mean that people are actively making an effort. You don't have to do anything other than show up and take the path of least resistance, and it is perpetuating. And so it's going to take intention, it's going to take collaboration, it's going to take bringing people to the table and slowing down. And I just can't say enough. I want to be able to help all the adults. It's, for a lot of them, there's just too much damage that could have been avoided, and it breaks my heart because their lives are ruined. And more could have been done. There were so many opportunities. I've tracked their childhood stories to their current situation, read the psych evals, read the different plans, read every doctor's note that led up to that, to their adult age. And there was chance after chance after chance for our system to show up for them. So I urge any folks in here who have an ability to impact policy and programming to risk something. Dig deep and risk something, because it is painful, a painful existence in this state. And it's something that children shouldn't have to learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendall. And thank you for your words. I'm hoping that we will be able to, after 11, we're going to have more of our speakers being able to join in. Just really quickly, I was wondering if there are any folks, community members, who have ideas on how to really help the youth through different types of programs. And then we will have youth voice and then some continued presentations.
Hey, Nicole, you're talking about help the youth. You're talking about community members right now being able to chime in?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and take that floor for a little bit. My name is Aj Johnson. I am operations manager over there at the Miracles Club, but also connected with OHI, the Equity and Inclusion sect of that. And as far as solutions are concerned, when it comes to our youth, especially our Black males, I don't like to recall or refer to them as Black boys all the time because that categorizes them and kind of like arrested development. It just keeps them complacent in where they're at. But our young Black kings and upcoming queens, let's just talk about them. If we support some of their father figures and fathers that have been stolen and being held captive against their will via the judicial system, and that's not just systemic racism, but that's with the implicit bias, because it's going undetected for so long, nobody addresses it. But if we support them on how to be better parents, regardless of what unfortunate situation that they're in, whether they landed themselves in there, whether it's falsified information, whatever be the case, then I think we have more of a fighting chance, when they do get released, to come out and be a prominent part of the child's life that's product of the system or the environment that they're in. If anybody disagrees, feel free to step up and say no. But here's the reason why I say we should support them. For our women that are single mothers, beautiful job you're doing. But you can only carry the torch so far. When it comes to teaching a young boy, for lack of a better terminology, but our young kings how to become greater kings and the heirs of the throne, right? I think that we should step up as a community and realize that their father needs to be present in their life to teach them other things that the mothers can't. Locking an individual up isn't the key unless, he's just out here and just unwilling to change, produce positive change. I get that part, but you have some that they made mistakes, not necessarily totally their fault, because faults and mistakes run two separate routes, but they just made mistakes and they're being penalized as though it's their fault solely. I'm one of those individuals. I'm a product of my environment and didn't have to be. But because of generational trauma, I swayed towards that the precarious arms of the streets. It engulfed me. I didn't know any better. I wanted to know better. I just didn't, and fell victim to the recidivism rate. I added to it. Here I am getting out after 16 and a half years. I've been out for 11 years out of the penitentiary, and I am excelling. I have 3 new kids. I have 5 adult children, 7 boys, and 1 daughter. And I'm excelling. I'm there for them. So they can't tell me the people that get locked up are just washed up. That nobody wants to try. No, nobody. I didn't have the assist. I had to come out here and find it because it wasn't there in a penitentiary for me. But I turned my correctional facility into a college-like atmosphere and learned all that I could so that I could be out here to fight for my kids. One of them I lost 6 months after I got out here. It messed me up, but I still had a decision to make. This just shows you the tenacity and my character, what I came out with. Different tools, a different set of tools. I'm determined to be there for my young men and my daughter, my queen, so that they have a fighting chance. But I don't see this happening unless we all come together as a collaborative, as a tribe, a community, to help out from every angle that we can. Suppress or just do away with, not suppress, systemic racism, and those that are suffering from implicit bias, just to step in and help rectify wherever their knowledge isn't, standing. Let's just help by that as a community.
And Aj, would you like to put your email in the chat so that folks are able to reach out to you even outside of this space?
I will. This is the down version, not because I feel like I can't speak freely, but because I'm still listening and I'll probably have some more to say later.
Okay, wonderful. We have Michael Hepburn in space. Please take it away. We got a couple of minutes left before our next presentation, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about your program.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here, part of the community. Thankful to be able to speak on the platform. After several years of mentoring and life coaching young men and women in the community here with the self-enhancement program, Salvation Army, also being case management for senior citizens in the community as well.
You're cutting out just a
I
little.
now at a point where I feel as if we're going to take things in a different light. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, it's just cutting out a little
Hello?
bit. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So you able to hear me clear now?
It's a little better.
Okay. Are you guys hearing me clear now? Hello?
We
We
can't.
can,
Oh, go ahead, Jolene.
I was gonna say, we can hear you. It just might be better if you turn your camera off, then we can hear what you're saying.
No. Okay, are you guys able to hear me better that way?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Once again, my name is Michael Hepburn. I've been a part of the community here, advocating for children and also senior citizens here with life coaching, mentoring, case managing. And so I'm feeling at this point there's another void we're going to fill with the music therapy program of Monk's Arts as we take another approach to the youth with music and arts and technology and music therapy to create a situation of prevention from the harms out there for the youth. And then as well, we're also going to be providing some resources from the community with mental health as well, as we team up with community leaders with Mind Solutions and a couple of different organizations. As I speak to quite a few people now, there's a need for that, for the youth to be able to see themselves productive in creative fields where they can also see themselves building as leaders through business ownership and through entrepreneurship of their artistry. And so we've heard, quite a lot of good things here today. I'm just, like I said, so thankful to be a part and be able to hear all of these things that are geared towards a way of bringing up the community and building. And we just, really would like to see people doing more of the artistic ability because the arts is a part of the community that suffers on support and funding and things of that nature. And so, as we all pay art taxes in our community here, we need to take a little bit more time to try to invest in that way, which is, partly the way of most of the community in the world. We are basically just, entertained by creativity, by art. And so this is a key lead to direction for our community and to safety in our community as well. But I'd like to thank you guys for giving me a moment. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I will leave my information on the chat where people can be a part of trying to help me create these different nuances for our future. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
so
Hep.
much.
Please put your information in the chat so that we can
Okay.
send this out to the community. Thank you.
All right.
And I appreciate all the community members that have stepped in to share their stories alongside us folks who are coming from a place of both lived experience and OHA staff. For our schedule, I'll just give a little brief kind of update on what is next to come. We are going to have Sophia, who is a wonderful youth, and I swear the next like changer of the world. And then we will be having a conversation with Amber, Tasha, and Maisha. And then we will have two special group guests following them right after. So please, Sophia, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm 20 years old. I'm a college student, and I'm a project assistant at the Healthy Transitions Grant at PSU. I've been dealing with mental health challenges since I was 14, so I understand pretty thoroughly what it's like to access services as a young person in Oregon. Of course, I can only speak for myself, so as I speak, I push you to think about other youth, especially those who are less privileged than I am. So I went to a very white high school, one of like very few Black students, so I felt pretty alone. All of the counselors were white women, and when I reached out for help, I was met with a lot of distrust. I was met with a lot of microaggressions. When I transferred high schools, I was placed with a Black counselor, and my world like opened up. He saw and valued me for everything I was, and I was no longer just like a diversity statistic. I strongly believe that like where the world is right now, there is nobody that can support Black youth better than Black people. And I'm tired of everyone pretending otherwise. White counselors do not get it. And no amount of cultural competency, even like cultural humility training, will make them fully understand what it means to be Black. I think that the last thing a depressed Black teenager should have to do is educate a middle-aged white woman. We deserve so much better. So for that reason, I want to call for sincere, intense recruitment efforts for Black mental health care professionals. I think that can look like offering grants. It can look like a program incentive for schools to hire Black counselors to support their Black student populations. In the roadmap, that's right, I read y'all's roadmap. OHA recognizes Oregon's origins in systemic racism and the disproportionate impact across generations of Oregonians. That recognition is critical, but it also means that action must follow. And I know OHA has immense power to change things. I also know that the government moves slow, that things take time, that there are hoops to jump through. And on behalf of the 107 10 to 24-year-olds that died by suicide last year in Oregon, I beg you to jump through the hoops and jump through them as fast as you can. I appreciate the work y'all are doing. I know that OHA is explicitly committed to partnering with youth to develop policy. So I'm here. I said what I said. It's your move. So thank you for what you're doing, and I appreciate the time that you've given me to talk.
Thank you, Sophia. I always appreciate just getting to hear what you have to say and speak your truth. Because again, you are the next generation. We are doing this so that all of the generations who come after us can pick up this work and have it be a little better than what we went through. I will now open the space to Tasha. And we also have Tasha, who's going to be continuing conversation around HTO. And we have, let's see here, some wonderful folks. We have Maisha and we have Amber. So please, y'all, take it away.
Thank you, Nakobe. Hello, everyone. My name is Tasha Bach. I use she, her, hers pronouns. My role within OHA is Social Influences on Health Strategist. I sit within the Office of the State Public Health Director within OHA. And I joined today at Nakobe's request to be able to talk about some of my lived experience being an Oregonian, and then kind of my path to where I've gotten now, and being able to talk a bit more about Healthier Together Oregon, even though I'm not sure what was discussed before I got here, and I apologize for being a little late. I had a conflict this morning, but to start with me, I am from Oregon. I was born and raised in Eastern Oregon. Hermiston, to be exact, is where I was born. And then I and my family were on the lower economic bracket. And so we did have to kind of bounce around and get supports from family. So I'm very well versed in Eastern Oregon and all of the little towns that are over there in Eastern Oregon. And I am biracial as well, and raised amongst the white side of my family. And I think that that is something to highlight, and why I speak about that is because of the lack of supports within Eastern Oregon that I observed or experienced when I was younger, seemed to be amplified by the fact that I also didn't have the supports from the Black side of my family as well. I wasn't connected to that side of my family. And unfortunately, I think that the white side of my family, as they tried to the best of their ability to provide supports, there were areas, there were gaps that they were unaware of. And because of the lack of supports and diversity within Eastern Oregon, I think that some of the needs that I had did not get met, and that my family didn't know how to advocate for me. And there wasn't really anyone within that area that could advocate for me as a child either. And so it seemed that I had to kind of wait until I was old enough to be able to advocate for myself, unfortunately. And at that point, I recognized that there was no one around me who really looked like me or understood what it was like to kind of walk in my shoes. And so that just kind of exacerbated a lot of the challenges, behavioral health challenges that I was having, mental health challenges that I was having living in Eastern Oregon, and a lot of the microaggressions and blatant racism that I had to deal with in that area as well. And I tried to find supports. I tried to reach out in high school and look to see where I could get some supports, and there were nothing existed, especially no one, I guess, that was culturally specific. I did have a counselor who tried her best in high school, but she didn't really know how to connect with me. And so it wasn't until I got into college and started to see a few more folks who looked like me that I was able to connect with them, and realized that being in the metropolitan area was a place that would offer more opportunity, but that also was what spurred a lot of my career path too, because that was the light bulb for me in college that representation really matters, and I need to be there in order to make sure that those behind me don't have to walk the same path that I did. So I eventually was able to make my way to Multnomah County, where I worked for the ESA program, the Early Assessment Support Alliance program within Multnomah County, and I was there for 6 years. And that program, I appreciate the idea around kind of the wraparound model within it to support young adults who are experiencing their first episode of psychosis, but is a very white-centric model. And I had to do a lot of advocacy for youth of color while I was working within that program. And I was able to help craft a diversity survey for the clients and their families so that they could express some of the inequities that they were feeling within that system. And I chose to kind of take my lived experience and the knowledge that I had gained from that program and working with that team to move up to the policy level within the director's office at Multnomah County Behavioral Health to try to institute some more change. And I recognized that the system I needed to be able to be a little bit higher to continue to try to implement the change that needed to occur. So that's where I made my way up to Oregon Health Authority. And I've been here for a little over a year now. And the position that I am in now is definitely a dream for me, because I get the opportunity to connect with so many different groups of people and be able to express what I have shared with all of you in order to try to build bridges and connect dots and help others to understand why things need to shift for all of Oregon, but definitely the rural communities, in order to ensure that the youth that need the supports are getting the supports, and that they are heard. And we won't be able to really do that unless we share and have a safe space to be able to do that as well. And that is definitely what I am trying to cultivate within this role too, is I want folks to know that they can come to me, they can talk to me, and we can try to see how we can implement some sort of systemic change, because that is my goal, is that we have to make changes to the system. And Healthier Together Oregon, the state health improvement plan, is an opportunity for us to come together and have that collective impact around those very specific priorities that are within it. And behavioral health and healthy youth are two of those priorities that we have an opportunity to kind of wrap around and move as a unit and as an agency, together with community, to ensure that we are making the changes that are actually gonna be longstanding. So I'm gonna turn it over to Amber, because I think she'll be able to speak to some of the more current things in Eastern Oregon that unfortunately are, I think, still happening.
Absolutely. And I'm going to leave my camera off because I don't want my sick child who's home with me right now to be too distracting. He will make faces. So I am here today as a community member and a person with lived experience. I currently live in Eastern Oregon. I live in Umatilla County, to be exact. And I think it's important that I share my story, but I'm not trying to call any particular agencies or anything out. But I previously worked human resources for the community mental health program in Umatilla County. And after 2020 and George Floyd and a lot of these issues were brought to the forefront, I was then placed in a diversity role. So, and with that, I was trying to create pipelines of access for individuals of color who have the necessary skills and experience to be therapists or to be counselors in our agency. And I was basically met with the idea of there's not enough of you. There's not enough of you to care, is basically how I thought. Unfortunately, that community mental health program was lost their contract in my county, and a new mental health program moved in. Community asked the question about culturally specific care, and it wasn't even at the top of their minds. It was an afterthought. And I can double down on many of the other stories that you've heard as being a biracial, Black person in Oregon, and trying to find care for yourself. I also grew up, in mostly white schools with only white teachers, only white counselors. Outside of school, there was only white therapists and counselors available to me. And no, there wasn't. It's as compassionate and wonderful as those people can be. You won't get it until you've been in these shoes, and that emotional labor and how heavy it is to carry on your back. And there's tons of studies to show that it really affects our health overall. And that's really what led me to OHA. Because of COVID, it opened a lot of doors for me opportunity-wise, and I'm able to remain in my rural community and work from home and help other communities get a seat at the table, because when they made the decision about our community mental health program, not a single community member was involved in that decision. It was our 3 white male commissioners who made that decision for our community. And we have a lot of Hispanic need as well, multilingual individuals who need to come and care for all of these individuals and the growing diversity in this area. People think that, I mean, yes, Oregon in general is a very white state, and in Eastern Oregon, even more so, but I don't think that anybody recognizes the actual diversity over here on this side of the state, or we're very, very ignorant, I guess, about the need over here. Rural areas lack resources just in general. And then it's just non-existent for people of color to get what they need. And that is what led me to what I do now with the regional health equity coalitions. And that's just really just bringing community and shifting that power focus so that we are able to make those decisions for ourselves, that we can say or, express and address in a policy to ensure that our needs are met and we are heard. And with that, I will pass it back over to you.
Collective impact. Maisha, it's an honor. Tomorrow, I was wondering if while Maisha is speaking, we are able to pull up the image that I had sent, the artwork. And please, Maisha, take it away with introducing yourself, who you are. It is such an honor to have, again, all of you in this space.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay? Let's see.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, so not on camera, trying to save bandwidth to actually be present and participate. And I'm actually not going to take up most of the time. My name is Maisha, but I also have my child here with me, Indica. And they are actually one of the youth that we are speaking of. They are one of the youth that are actually going through this system right now, and wanted to actually give them the space to share their experience as they are currently navigating through the available resources. Can I speak? Yeah, come for it. Okay. I kind of want to share a few things that happened, and I think I want to start with stuff that's happened when I was younger. When I was in Coos Bay, I went to the school. And it was just small things, like they called the cops on me for having a meltdown instead of providing counseling. I was getting bullied on a bus and they moved me because I was the issue. And there's this instance, and I'll admit I shouldn't have done it. I just wanted to ding dong ditch someone. Stupid choices. And they made me do that. And so while I did that, they didn't stop this guy, but he threatened me with a shotgun. And they told me, well, that's what happens when you do that. And they didn't try and stop him at all. They let him say that. And when I was here, I went to school. I don't think I'm supposed to share names. But some lady called the cops on me for being on the playground when I was at that school. They called the cops me again, was having another breakdown because of my anxiety of what happened, because they felt threatened. or when my uncle came to pick me up, they asked if he was really my uncle. And you could tell that they really felt that, or the counselor that was there. I would tell her something like, oh, I'm acting, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go home, oh, I'm gonna get a spanking, It's not like I'm getting beat. But she told DHS, it made it sound like I was gonna get beat. It made it sound like my mom was abusing me, and that's not the story. And she didn't really help me either. I don't even think she trusted me fully. Newest thing that's happened is I was in the hospital. My mom just now told me this, but they wanted to arrest me because I tried to attempt suicide. But she told me one of the people here helped me get into services to get help. But I've also realized that most of the staff there, like they didn't look like me, or none of the other kids did. When I was at Unity, when I went to Payer, there were only 2 kids that I felt like I could relate with because they looked like me. And there was 1 staff. And I felt like maybe if there was more, like maybe if my therapist that was there, the people who talked to me, looked more like me, it could have helped me realize, like, oh, this is someone I can talk to. This is someone I can relate with, type of thing. And it's just small things that kind of suck. I mean, even now at my school, like, yeah, there's a lot more people that look like me, and it's really nice to see. Like, it's nice to be like, oh, these are people who get me. But it's just, I feel like it sucks almost because there's not as many people. And I think it would benefit other people too. And I have this poem, if it's okay to share. I wrote it while I was in treatment.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor
Okay.
to have you sharing here. Yes, please.
Okay. Earth, how it's so small, so many people. Oh, Earth, do you ever cry? I can feel your tears falling down on me. Dear Earth, why are you dying so slowly? Are they harming you? I know I'm not from your world, but you offer so much. So many humans living each day. From up here, they look like tiny ants. It's humorous sometimes, though. So why is your world so flawed? Why must people fight? Why must they die? Why not get along? Why is there no shelter for some of your people? Why no food? Were you in a bad mood? I hate these issues. I may just be a simple alien. I do care for you all. That was a poem I made with my language arts class. Good. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll give the phone to Mom.
Thank you so much for having the courage and the power and the strength to share your poetry and your artwork and your experience. And we are all here to support you. Again, thank you so much. I'll pass it back to Maisha just for the rest of the conversation that you would like to have as a parent. Again, that was really powerful. So I'm sorry, I'm a little weepy right now. With the relatability and heartbroken for the generations that, again, I know we have all experienced feelings very similar. So thank you, Maisha.
No worries. Literally, there's not much else I can say that's the word straight from the child's mouth who is directly being affected right now. I know they were a little hard to follow, but to give you context, when they said they started with Coos Bay, they were 7. These are experiences they experienced from the age of 7. They are now 14. And one of their biggest strengths is being their own advocates. Not because it's a skill they have, it's because it's a necessity. they've had to be that child who has to educate their white counselors on specific cultural needs. When they were in residential, they had to explain to their counselor, I can't use the same products that you have available for the other residents. Can we call my mom so she can bring me the supplies I need for my hair type? You know, things like that. And just the smallest things that we might overlook are some of the things that make the most impact when we talk about addressing the cultural needs of our children within the system. And that's something that I want to just make sure is also on the forefront of people's minds. That we make those considerations for those things as well, and stop making our children have to do that invisible labor that we as adults should be doing for them when we are in these spaces.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both for being in here. Thank you both for sharing. I do see here that we have an incredible community leader and organization in the space. And if you are willing, would the folks from REAP and Pastor Mark Jackson like to share any words, wisdom, or talk about their program at all?
Thanks so much, Nicole. We appreciate for being in the space this afternoon. And I am joined by Anderson DeVoice, who I'll allow to maybe speak initially. And I'll come back and hopefully get us to the finish line.
Hi, it's so hard to come after that powerful poem. But I really appreciate the voice and encounter of our students. That is a big part of why we do what we do. I'm a student alumni of REAP, and that's how I first got started out. I'm now the strategic initiatives manager, working to build out our behavioral health agency, where we are currently working with students that we work with in the schools from the student leadership standpoint, now with our behavioral health center with counseling. And so with that, it's free services. There are no insurance needed. There's no fees needed, anything like that. No session limits currently. And so it thinking about my journey through it, coming in and working with REAP, working with our Reflections program, which is an alternative in-school suspension program, where a lot of schools, the way they code and recognize discipline does not take into account the mental health concerns, where we see anxiety attacks or frustrations or just fatigue in the schools. And it is seen oftentimes as a discipline issue to be solved. And so our staff are in the schools throughout the week, every day except for on Monday, when they're working together to figure out how we can recognize trends and better support our students. But other than that, we're in the school supporting throughout the day. And a big realization in working in the different districts that we work in is that we need more services. And so was it this November? So it's brand new. We just launched our behavioral health center. Oftentimes working with students of color. I am in school currently getting my clinical mental health counseling degree from PSU. I graduate in December. I'm currently one of the counselors, and we're looking to expand to continue having counselors of color and working with families and students in our community. And so those are the services that we offer and the work that we're looking to do to meet the needs that we're seeing, experiencing, and feeling, and bringing resources where that may not have been there when we grew up. And so that is a little bit of the story. I'll pass it back over to Mr. Jackson.
Thanks, Anderson. I also want to acknowledge a good friend, Kendall Tees Ball, I see on the call here. REAP is in its 22nd year of direct service. We're based in outer Northeast Portland, the Gateway neighborhood off 108th and Halsey. And we currently are serving students grades 3 through 12 in the K-12 system. And we support 10 school districts, including ESDs, in over 5 counties and like 24 schools, both in urban and rural areas. And there are people of color in rural areas who look like me. And I think one thing about our over 2 decades of work is it's important to affirm the value of our young people. And REAP has done that, I think, effectively in terms of cultural identity, which we believe affirmation is a real, I think, valuable tool to affirming one's mental health, to where our students really have a sense of belonging. And because a lot of our students of color are in public systems that were designed not for their health or thriving, it's challenging. And REAP provides that real-time on-site support to affirm their identity, to elevate their voice as students, and also to create the conditions for them to thrive as leaders. We provide direct service in the schools. Also, we do school culture and climate assessment work, as well as professional development for educators and policy advocacy. In fact, currently REAP is co-championing Senate Bill 421, which would be a statewide youth collaborative that initially was defined as Youth Racial Justice and Equity Collaborative. But this legislation isn't designed, in fact, to give students more voice in the policymaking processes. They will be informing the governor and all state departments around policy that impact young people. And this legislation was, in fact, developed and conceived because of the racial harassment and assaults that students of color face in our public learning environment. So we took lemon, we're making sweet lemonade with this legislation. And this is how REAP shows up in the space, and not just direct service to students, but also how do we, in fact, inform system thinkers and policy leaders to reimagine what's best for our young people. We provide cultural programs specific to Black studies in the schools on weekends, just a sense of broader community to where students feel validated, affirmed, and again, we create the conditions for them to thrive. But it's nothing like seeing students be vulnerable and transparent with their personal story and traumas, only to be let down by a system. So what REAP does is to create the level of trust to allow students to feel comfortable to share their voice. And then in turn, we take that collective voice of students and we advocate, right, in school settings, but also with our state legislature and state departments to be more trauma-informed and more restorative in practice, to understand that students, we know by research, really thrive where there are protective factors in place, specifically folks who look like them, and where they are exposed to curriculum and services that are culturally specific and reflective of their cultural and inherited values. That's the value REAP has provided this state for the past 22 years. And to Anderson's point, the behavioral health component is new because we found that, especially during the era of COVID, we're serving a different type of student in the classroom setting. It's not just about content delivery and structure delivery. It's about how do we connect with the students to make them feel as they belong, right? It's not so much what's wrong with you, what happened to you that puts you in this disposition. So really allowing students to become comfortable with reaching out for help specific to this conversation, social emotional supports. Oftentimes this is seen as a taboo, but we have found with our culturally responsive and trauma-informed practice, we're not just supporting students and families, but we also are informing our policy leaders and educators about their biases and how they perpetuate trauma. So we're so excited to be a part of this conversation. And we work directly with OHA. In fact, that we have a contract with OHA where we actually have been working with administering a statewide youth advisory council that was put together to, in fact, to invest $1 million into community and schools regarding COVID recovery and mental health supports. So we're so excited to have that validation from OHA that they would choose us as the actual contracted partner to not only bring the voice of students to the state level, but also to entrust in students the wisdom and the awareness to distribute funds to serve our community. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing, and a shout out to all of those young folks who are doing work too. Oh my goodness, this has been amazing. I have another speaker. If you would like to take it away and introduce yourself as well, Rashida, go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Rashida. I identify as Black African American. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the Youth Intensive Care Coordination Supervisor with Multnomah County. And so I apologize for joining late. We're wrapping up interviews, trying to get more folks of color on our team. And so I appreciate the space. So I work with Multnomah County. As I mentioned, am the supervisor for intensive care coordination. For Multnomah County, in which we are constantly trying to utilize the lens that we say that is so important for us to utilize, but are constantly finding ourselves sitting in situations where we're talking with providers, explaining our programs and asking, do you have people of color on your staff? In which we get hit with the initial pause. And there's just that constant back and forth. And so we just have providers coming to our meetings the other day that we're speaking to, we do all these things and we try to make sure we meet all the clients' needs. And we were like, do you have people of color on your staff? And they were like, well, we have this population and we're meeting folks with LGBTQ. We were like, okay, do you have Black and brown folks on your staff? And they were like, well, no. And we're like, well, what are you doing to do those types of things? And they're like, well, there's the rules and the regulations and we got to do this and they have to meet this. They have to be able to do these assessments. And no, we don't have those folks on staff. And it's just like, well, if our population continues to grow and look more like Black and brown folks, and you don't have people on your staff that can do the assessment to make them feel comfortable to do the assessment, then I mean, I understand you're helping some clients, but there's a whole handful of clients that you're missing in that process. So we're definitely trying to grow that within our county. We recently were able to finally get folks on staff that are actually sitting with multiple intersectionalities with both brown and LGBTQIA populations. And so we're just trying to grow that. We're constantly trying to work with Care Oregon and making sure that they're utilizing that lens of we're saying, do you have lists? Do you have information that are specific to KSA needs? And it's in our partnership since the CCO 2.0 rollout back in 2020. That's been a strong push that we've been trying to get forth. And it's taken some time, and even after a couple of years, the list is not plentiful, it's not exhaustive, it's very minimal, and we're still continuing to push that. And that's generally been our agenda. It's very small push. I mean, our program is literally trying to go in, help families navigate the multiple systems that they all tend to be in, whether it's the educational stuff, the medical stuff, the juvenile justice stuff. We're trying to help support all of that. And a lot of the times our families just don't agree with the systems that they're a part of. They don't understand because there's all the jargon that comes with that, and it just makes it really hard. And so we just try to come in and not necessarily push our goals, but really grow their goals and help them see that they can be their own benefit and that they can actually move their treatment forward. But it's really hard when multiple systems have come in and basically said, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, this is what you need to do. We're not about pushing our agenda. It's really on the family to create their goals. And our goal is to help everybody else see that goal and how we can move forward to meeting the family's goal, not the county's goal, not the state goal, not the school's goal, but their goals, and empower them to be their better selves. And it's not always easy. I mean, we can have a family for anywhere as short as 3 weeks. We can have families for as long as 3 years. It just really depends on what the family's needs are and their expectations. And it's really hard. There's no resources out there for Black and brown kids. And every time we ask about, well, what are we doing? What are fun? Well, we're having a meeting about the meeting for the meeting about the meeting. And it's like, okay, well, we have families that are in need right now. We're constantly pushing with Care Oregon in regards to things like flex funds. And they're like, oh, well, and if y'all all remember, it may be some time when we had the forest fires and they came up with this really quick situation where if you have a fire situation, here's how you get those funds. We had families that were displaced by violence in the community, all this, that, and the other. Well, we're having a meeting about the meeting for the meeting. We're like, this family was displaced, like they have nowhere to go. How can we get funding to them quicker? Well, we're working on it. it didn't take you that long for the forest fires. Why is it taking you that long in order to do things for these families? They are working with OHP. They have needs too. So we're still, I mean, it's a constant fight that we're constantly trying to knock the doors down, and people are not hearing us. And it's really hard and it's frustrating because these families are like, what am I supposed to do? And our hands are tied, and we're just like, okay, we're having to pivot how we deal with a lot of our families because we don't have the resources to deal with the immediate concerns. And so we have to deal with the things that are not so immediate, but can hopefully get some assistance while they're trying to get to the things that they need to get to. So whether it's the school stuff or the housing stuff or whatever those things are, that's what care coordination tends to help with. A lot of the families don't even realize they have care coordination. They're automatically assigned when they go into hospital situations, or we get referrals from school districts or teachers or parents or grandparents or neighbors or whatever that looks like. And there's no wrong door for getting into our program. It's just a matter of somebody having a concern that somebody with mental health is needing some assistance or anything like that. And we jump in and we try to get, like I said, the family's goals, what they want to work on, and then we move from there. It's really guided by the family's youth and voice, or family voice and choice, and then we move from there. So, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow the program. We've been around for quite some time, where we had a reiteration in the 2020 Care Oregon kind of come in, step in, doing their stuff, but we're still trying to grow that and get more involvement in the communities, more involvement in the schools, more involvement in all the areas, so that when our families come to us and they're like, what do we have? We can say, have you tried this resource? Have you tried this resource? Because literally that's what we do. We do the behind the scenes work where most of the families don't, they're like, what do you do? Remember when your kid got into school? That was us. You remember when you got, that was us. We just do the behind the scenes work. And that's a lot of the times what families don't realize. They just want the automatic stuff. And we're not the big ticket item, we're the behind the scenes item, and it tends to help out families more than they know.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you want to put your contact info in the chat, that would be incredible. So I'm just going to wrap this up as the final presenter. As most of you know, and some of you don't, my name is Nicobe Petronelli. I use she, they pronouns. Although this is the Children's System Advisory Council to advise the Child and Family Behavioral Health Unit, I am housed in the Office of Recovery and Resilience. We are a new team who really, our intention is to bring not just the voice, but the expertise of community members with lived experience into the policy creation, formation, implementation, and evaluation and accountability at the state level. And so today in this space, it has been so beautiful, first of all, to see faces that look like mine and my family's, which I do not often get to see in this work. Youth who are talking about their experiences and feeling that heartache from the familiarity. It has been it's been a few years since I've been considered a youth or a transition aged youth, but my family, I come from a family that has an extensive history of mental health needs and system navigation. I lost my older sister back in 2011 to suicide. And many of my family members are scared to access mental health services because of the ways that they had been treated in the past. It took me until I was about, I want to say 28 years old to even consider seeing a primary care physician on a regular basis, or to consider talking to a therapist on a regular basis, because of the bias and the lack of intentionality and really the harm that had been caused by how I had seen generations of my family degraded in these spaces. So when we're looking at policies around system barriers or creating pathways towards including community voice, in this meeting today, I was hoping, and I have seen, the lived experience expertise of so many members of the African community here sharing knowledge and experience that is so crucial to our policy planning efforts. And I will speak to the exclusion usually of these voices, the intention around really building relationship with community, as when we are creating these policies, when we are mapping out how we want to see our systems in whatever area we are occupied in at a policy state level, in any government position that you have, like these are also the experiences that will impact myself, my mother, my auntie, my future children. These are the policies that are impacting the young man who was racially attacked 3 weeks ago and his behavioral health. These are the policies that are and the pathways that are impacting students at Jeff, which is in my backyard in Northeast Portland, and students at Cleveland High School, in a space where many of the resources either are not known of by officials who have been in government roles for a long time, because there needs to be a lot of intentional community engagement and pouring into the community. Giving feedback can't just be an extractive process, because there's a lot that has gone into the knowledge, a lot of pain and resilience that has gone into the knowledge that comes with that feedback. And it's not as simple as answering a survey, but it's addressing, as our equity statement says, both historical and contemporary injustice and redistributing power. And I would like to add intentionality and pouring into folks. So I wanted to thank everyone who presented here today, and everyone who has been resilient enough to survive and be here, and for folks who are reaching out during times where they are having to be resilient, and for being here post 2020, which I think is something that also needs to be acknowledged. What inspires me, one thing out of many that inspires me to do this work, is in 2020, I was living right next to Revolution Hall. And there were young people. Like I heard some 7 and 8 year olds say some things that I was like, dang, I hope somebody wrote that down for the history books. So we are here, and we are thriving, and we are also seeing these young minds shaped by current kind of news, right? Current happenings that are really reflective of history and the generations that have come before us. And so when it comes to behavioral health, I do, again, one last time want to say that this is all interconnected and collective impact. We need behavioral health systems division, we need public health, we need CPOP, we need any division we need system of care. We need all of the divisions and teams out here working together to make sure that this lived experience expertise is what goes into policy work. For the last 15 to 30 minutes of CSAC, I would like to kind of open up the floor to folks. I'd really like to prioritize questions in the first 15 minutes from African American family members, or family members of color or youth of color, or feedback or comments. And then for the last 15 minutes, I want to open the floor to everyone so that we can complete out this dialogue in just feeling uplifted, feeling hopeful. I see a quote that said, let's make decisions and or policies that people don't have to survive later. Wow, that is powerful. So I am going to, I see my first hand, Tori, pass it to you.
Awesome. So I would like to talk solutions at this time. I would really, from what I'm hearing through all the amazing speakers who came today, is that we need a seat at the table. And what that means is not having one representative of the BIPOC community represent all of BIPOC community. There's things as a Black woman that I can't speak to for people, or experiences for people who English is their second language, or generational things or cultural mores that I just can't speak to because I haven't lived them. And so a seat at the table does not mean having one person represent the BIPOC community. Also, I believe we must change our messaging from what about to and, right? It's not African Americans are having this issue and what about this other community? It's about African Americans are having this experience, this other community is having this experience, and we all need to be at the table, right? One experience does not exclude the other, and they all need a seat at the table to express their own experiences. And also, I'd like to change the messaging, right? So a lot of times the organizations speak to their initiatives. I want the conversation to be about the outcomes. And then once you tell me about these deltas, these real change in your experience, then we could speak to the how. But unfortunately, we spend the majority of our time saying, well, this is what we've done, this is what we're doing, but never to the, and what was the outcome of that, right? I saw in the chat that there is an opportunity for community involvement in this process, but I've never heard of it. If I'm not already plugged in, and I am somewhat plugged in, I would not know that these things exist. And so having a link buried on your website is not community engagement. It's not community outreach. What is community outreach is what Ms. Nakobe did today. All these people who are passionate and concerned about these issues showed up on a Friday morning to make their voices heard. That's community engagement. That's community outreach. So that's all. And thank you, Nakobe, for bringing us together and giving us an opportunity to speak. We appreciate you and the work you're doing. It is much needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. I'm sorry, I'm weepy. Like, this has been really beautiful. I'm gonna pause and give space for more hands. Anyone who just wants to jump in and add.
I'd like to add something. I don't know how to put my hand up on this, so I'll just do this. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this platform for many different reasons. The first reason is to see individuals come together as a collective and talk about making a difference. And I understand the sister that was just on, our queen, when she said, okay, we talked about what we've done, what we're doing, but the results, we have a lot of results. Those come in testimonials, different social platforms, but I think we need to create a platform to where we have those testimonials, like a younger queen was on there. She was talking about the experiences she was going through right now and just recently in the past. So I appreciate this opportunity because it helps me, it propels me forward to want to do more. I'm always eager to do more, but when I get that petrol, that special petrol, that plus instead of that regular, it's going to push me that much further. So I appreciate you. I appreciate everything. And a special shout out to you, Nakobe.
Thank you, Aj. Real quick before the next hand, I just wanted to give a special, huge, massive shout out to Walter Bailey. Walter is in the car and driving right now, but just recognize that he is a change maker and a legend. And it is an honor to get to do this culturally specific community outreach alongside him. And so we can't say Nakobe without saying Walter. We have one hand, and then Walter, I want to let you speak. So go ahead.
Was that for me, Nakobe? Can you hear me again?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Thank you. I just real quick, and I apologize earlier on. I never introduced myself. I'm Muthoni Iman. I go by Noni. I'm an equity clinician here at OHA, and I'm a She/Her series. I just want to follow up real quick with Tori. I really, really resonate to what you are saying about engaging the community. Earlier on, Cynthia had talked about the Black COVID strategy work group. This is a team that was started during the pandemic to keep update the community, specifically the Black community, and give them updates on what was going on with the pandemic and the vaccine. We want to keep this space going, and there's a group of us that are working. I see Shikaila over there and Aaron that are continuing to work on keeping that space going and alive. And we want it to be a space at OHA that community members can continue to have the voice of the communities, the Black communities can continue to be heard at OHA. And so we have our monthly listening sessions that and in May we are going to have an in-person session. We are still developing it and growing it. In the past, it has been mostly us talking at the community, giving them health updates and everything, but we are now morphing to move it to where the community can also have a space to bring their voices and also have those resources that you are asking for. So it's a work in progress, and we really encourage for us to be here, because it's right now, besides what this NACOBI is doing, is probably the only space that we have right now with OHA for the community to come and get heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really hope that more folks join in on the work that this COVID-19 work group is doing. It terrifies me that this is currently temporary position. So I'm hoping that there is a way that this continues, because this team has done a lot of work and made a huge impact. So I just want, again, before Walter, you're about to be on, but a very big shout out and definite call to action around the importance of community engagement and moving not just because COVID's not over, but not just around COVID outreach, really, again, collective impact, connection, and keeping these folks around, because there have been such healing spaces created by these individuals, and the work you are doing is phenomenal. I'm gonna pass it to Walter, and then, yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Walter.
Hi, everyone. Walter Bailey, Officer of Recovery and Resilience. I'm going to be quick. My heart is filled with joy. My heart is just overflowing. Shout out Black ERG. Shout out the Black COVID team. Shout out to everybody on this call. The nerve that was struck.
Walter, we lost you. I'm hoping he can come back. All right, let's see if Walter can come back in a little bit. In the meantime, I'll try and send him a text. In the meantime, is there anybody else from the community or the ERG who would like to speak before I open up the platform for everyone to speak and ask questions? Simon Williams, stage is yours. Walter's back.
Hey, I'll just.
Oh, no.
I'll just see you guys. Just know that I love you.
Thank you, Walter.
I'm just right.
Okay.
I love you.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Simon.
I love you guys.
Simon, and then I
you,
see we
Walter.
have Mr. Jackson.
Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Walter, you're gonna mute. Be careful out there, brother. Grand Rising, Salam Alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak for those who are in the Deen. Thank you for being here today. So, I was just kind of looking at some statistics in 2018, African-American as well as, non-Hispanic African diaspora people represented 14% of the total population in the whole United States, but 23% of all kids in foster care. That's incredible. Out of 43 million people, out of 325 million people, that 23% of the foster care system were those kids who look like us. The thing that stuck out to me, though, is one of the difficulties with treating African-American families in a predominantly white space like the state of Oregon is there is this inherent distrust and leeriness between anything that revolves around the system. So one of the challenging things is for behavioral health providers is they're going to come across an inherent leeriness about receiving help from a provider because it's often attached to a system. So, oftentimes when parents are involved in the system in order to get their kids back from DHS or whatever like that, more than likely they're mandated to undergo substance use disorder treatment or mental health treatment. Therefore, there is this kind of like punitive connection made with the system and how it relates to behavioral health providers. Because if they fail or respond poorly to treatment, it often determines whether they even get their kids back. So there's this struggle with there's no representation in the providership of people that look like them to understand the diunital dynamic, as we learned that term from Dr. Edwin Nichols this month from the Black History Month aspects of cultural difference, that one shoe does not fit all. A lot of times the evidence-based practices that are used to treat families are not culturally appropriate. Say, for instance, let's say cognitive, behavioral therapy, which is used to often treat those with chronogenic factors, was developed by Aaron T. Beck during the civil rights era. So none of the control group that he had involved in creating this evidence-based practice involved Black people at all. And so a lot of what they would call cognitive distortions, a lot of what they would call, overgeneralizations or mental filters or any of those components were not necessarily aspects of cognitive impairment. These were natural perspectives of the African and African-American community. So to be honest, I think, what we should do and focus on, and we talked about this earlier. And first, I want to say this. I usually don't like talking in these formats. I don't like pain sharing. I don't like hearing my people share their pain in a room of people who can't do anything about it. Harriet Tubman once said that fervent discussion about taking action should never be confused as action itself. And so we continue to have these discussions with no one in the room who can actually make a change. And the change needs to happen at a policy level. And it needs to happen at a program level where we're implementing and building a supportive, like a collaborative network of African and African-American and Black identified providers at a residential, outpatient, peer support level, to be quite honest. And there's so many providers right now, some are in this room now and some are not, who can be utilized. But these states and counties fail to provide the fiscal support necessary. And also a lot of the funding requirements only basically reimburse evidence-based practice. And the truth is that stuff doesn't work for our community. So there's a lot of investment that needs to happen. There's a lot of policies that need to change, not only at the state legislative level, but at the CCO level, as far as what the CCOs would be considered reimbursable practice. We're talking non-traditional, we're talking lived experience, and we need to also understand we have a culturally specific approach to an Afrocentric lens of treatment that doesn't make sense to the dominant white culture. And so it is absolutely a necessity of recruiting, training, retaining a more robust African-American, Black identified provider workforce, and get those who are also in the field credentialed and supported to be highly educated and to be able to cross your T's and dot your I's, render unto Caesar what is his, but give unto God in the community what is theirs. And the truth is until we start getting that, we're just going to continue to have these meetings where we're just pain sharing and nothing's changing. And it's really about, changing policy and changing the workforce. That's been my experience in 24 years of being in this field, both at the service provider level and at the administrative level.
Thank you so much, Simon. And thank you for being here today. Mr. Jackson?
Thanks so much. And yes to what Simon said. Simon says, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned a question. I'm new in this particular space, but we are not absent from policy conversations. You mentioned earlier, N'Kobe, in terms of your position, I'm not for sure it was the position or this particular unit is temporary. I would love to hear from you, maybe in the email, what support you need from the community to ensure it's a permanent position or a unit, so we can.
Oh no, I'm not temporary. My unit's not temporary. It's the Black COVID-19 response team, and we can connect outside of this space about that work. But those women are doing the work. What I mentioned is I'm not part of the child family behavioral health team. I'm just temporarily hosting CSAC. I'm from the Office of Recovery and Resilience.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for clarification. But again, I want to echo what Simon said prior to me taking the call. Appreciate you. I have to exit the meeting, but I just thank you for the invitation and look forward to collaborating.
Thank you so much for making the time to be here. And thank you for everyone who came to take the time to be here and have these collaborative conversations. I'm now going to open the floor up to everyone. So if there are folks who are here who have not asked questions, who have had questions throughout the meeting, who are usually in this space, who are usually on these teams, who are working to shape policy for children, youth, young adults, and families, please raise your hand so we can kind of hear some of your feedback today as being a part of this community collaboration effort for the first time ever in the Children's System Advisory Council history in the last 20 years.
This is Roxanne. I had a question for Tasha, but I can't see her on the list of participants anymore. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Roxanne, Tasha had to run.
Okay.
But if you do have a question for her and you send it to me, I can get it to her.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to pose the question here too, just so can be something to think about. There are a lot of students in the states that, and especially in this one, that are mixed. And there are a lot of families that are dedicated to providing for the needs of their children, obviously. But in those situations, perhaps could use some support to understand the other cultures, that they are not necessarily in those communities, and or enmeshed in the communities, or didn't grow up in those communities, and so they are not going to understand all of those needs as well. And I was thinking that some services to provide some training for, because I'm speaking from experience as a mother of mixed children, many different races, and those in the LGBTQIA community, all those. You know, I had to get schooled by my kids when I was older, when they were older, and understood those things, and found out some things that had happened while they were younger, and didn't understand that they were being mistreated. Like in my old, one of my sons told me when he was older that in youth group in a church, the youth leader nicknamed him Kunta Kinte, and he thought it was cute. It was a cute little nickname, and nobody ever said anything to him until later he said that to me, and I had just happened to know that movie and that story, and I'm like, that was a racial nickname. That was not okay. But at that time, it was like from Tennessee, and we moved to Oregon, and I was like, so maybe, oh, hopefully that's just a Tennessee thing. And he was like, oh no, let me tell you about some things that have happened since I've been here. And you know, and then also my other son let me know what it feels like to be approached by a police officer when he's in Seattle and he's running to the corner store with his hood up because it's raining to get a gallon of milk because he wants to eat his cereal, and he gets approached by a police officer, you know, and he says, because I always said, you know, I wasn't privileged growing up, but I present as white. So he's like, so if you were running and you had your hood up and you were trying to go to the grocery store, because, you know, in the rain to get some milk, and you're approached by a police officer, would you automatically feel like I'm about to go to jail or I'm about to die? And I was like, no, I wouldn't. And he was like, well, maybe you haven't always experienced, and I'm going to say the bad word to a lot of people, but maybe you haven't always experienced white privilege, but in that moment you did, because you didn't have to be afraid. And so those are the kind of conversations I would like to see us provide in training to very, very awesome, you know, families who are sometimes raising children of multiple races, and they only represent part of those races, so that they can learn about the needs of all the different intersectional parts of their children. And if they can't provide them themselves, that they can access some resources to help them learn and grow and be part of the different intersectional communities they belong to.
Yes, thank you, Roxanne. I saw a heart from Roberta and claps. Thank you both for throughout the CSAC meetings that I've been in attendance of before, and for constantly bringing that center back as well. So thank you. Anna, I saw that you had a hand up. Did you still have question, comment, concern, or addition?
I was just thinking about what Simon said earlier about, you know, listening to all of this pain and people who can't fix it, you know, sitting in this room, and just wanted to invite folks to join the work of the System of Care Advisory Council Legislative Committee if there are things that need to be addressed via policy. For instance, the mention of the hair care, like that should be a law. It should not be okay that kids can't get the hair care and body care products that they need when they're getting services or when they're at school in our state. So if there are things like that you are like, there ought to be a law about this, come connect with us, and we're happy to develop that work through our avenues, because we can propose legislation and do community built lawmaking. So just offering that as a space where we can do something about it.
Thank you, Anna, and I appreciate you so much and the work that we've been able to do to collaborate together around youth and young adult work and your intention. It speaks volumes, and so I just want to say thank you in this space as well. Do we have any more hands? I see that our numbers have dwindled. Any more last thoughts or comments? If not, let's see here. Yeah, I'll give it about a minute or so, and if not, we can reclaim your time and just kind of close out today again with this message of collective impact and the fact that it does take a village. And when we are working in the state and as state workers, as family members, as community members, many of our presenters today are parents with children. And we are folks, even as adults, navigating through these systems, and as professional navigating through behavioral health systems. I will tell you, it is not easy. So, Kendall, I see you have a hand up. Go ahead, take it away.
Can you hear me? Okay. I just am curious. I mean, outside of Anna and the one other person that spoke, I imagine there's a lot of folks who are in here right now. It seems like we are dropping in and visiting this space. I don't know who typically is in this space, or if they are present, or if they heard what was said. Just wanting to better understand, you know, it takes a lot of emotional labor from all the folks who showed up here to share our stories and our truth, and having some sort of acknowledgement that we're heard, and also what actions are going to follow, or what, you know, if this information was helpful. Does it matter? I mean, it matters, but does it matter to the people who are in this space and hold decision-making power? So I just would really benefit from hearing from individuals. I don't know who those people are though.
And I second that. I would like to know, you know, because we did come with intent to be able to tell our truth. And is someone doing meeting minutes, taking that and making actions from that? Because due to the life coaching thing that I mentioned, it can be formed, and who's forming it? Who's going to even think about it? Did they introduce themselves? I did not catch that. So who's here? Who's making the next step? That's what I would like to hear.
Let's see, are there any representatives from the Child and Family Behavioral Health team who this council serves to advise, who would like to give some comments back or answer a few of the questions in the space?
There's several of us here. I'm Shanda Hostetler. I'm with the Child and Family Behavioral Health team. I'm not the manager, so I was trying to slowly unmute in case I stepped on people's toes. I focus on youth suicide prevention within the Child and Family Behavioral Health team. And so I also noticed that Annette Marcus of the Alliance to Prevent Suicide was like leaning toward her unmute as well. So I will also say that that's another entity that is present here. Annette Marcus is our staff to the Alliance to Prevent Suicide, which is a statewide youth suicide prevention focused group that also does a lot of legislative advocacy as well as program advocacy across the state. Would love to have any of y'all who are interested, who are here either for the first time or here regularly, to join us on the Alliance as well. But I will say that the voices that we have heard today do shape the work of the Child and Family Behavioral Health team and do shape the work of the Alliance to Prevent Suicide. I can specifically talk about how this, like in my head, I'm thinking about youth suicide prevention as I'm hearing these things. So I'm thinking about school systems and suicide prevention policy and programs that live and breathe in school systems. That's one of the things I was thinking about as you all were sharing your stories. So thank you for that. I don't want to leap to taking like, here are the 6 things I'm going to do, sort of like minimizing the stories that you all have shared into, I know that feels minimalistic to me, but also don't want to leave you feeling like that was a lot of emotional labor for nothing either. So what I will say in this space is we as a team appreciate continued accountability. We are committed to carrying your stories with us as we do the work in big ways, but also in concrete ways as we shape the children's behavioral health system. Is that too high in the sky? I don't want to leave you feeling condescended or like.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what we're used to hearing. I think that's what all of the communities that show up and take time out of their days to once again share our experiences. I mean, I hear you, things don't change overnight. A lot of us work for OHA and understand systems, but I guess, like, are there things that you think, like anything specific that you heard that is actionable, that you can share outside of gratitude, which is appreciated?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that that push. In this moment as a team, like, so the Child and Family Behavioral Health team is about 20-ish folks who work on the whole system. We are concretely right now spending time looking at the birth to prison pipeline. I heard a lot of things shared today that are like, here are junctures of what that is looking like on the ground. That is definitely something we'll be talking about. So that's I think one of the first things that came to mind for me is it will shape that conversation. The change, the work is painfully slow at times. So I just acknowledge that. I also see hands up, and I want to make space.
This is Roberta. Can I just jump in, Nicobe, real quick? So I know Anna introduced herself as being on the legislative team, and I would love to suggest, if even if she's not on, that y'all can follow up with her, because she said she works in OHA, that she take this forward to her team, that this needs to be legislation that is written, not just about hair care products and skin products, just all of this. Oh, Anna, I'm sorry, I had you covered up with my chat box, but I think that more needs to come in faster. And this is about, schools not doing right by kiddos. This is about them, hiding and covering over things. This group is a behavioral health system of care council, and the behaviors come from these injustices. I mean, not just these injustices, but it definitely has an impact on mental and behavioral health. And there's the tie-in, whatever you needed, the link or a tie-in to make all of the things that were shared today actionable. I beg and plead that you take it forward and really push it, because things have to change. I mean, they just have to. And you have the ability to make some of that happen by being the push from what you've heard today. So please do that.
And I want to say, I work for my people. Even if I work at OHA, I work for my people first, B1. What makes the community not want to be in these meetings is because there's nothing tangible that's going to be happening in real time So then they feel like their contribution is not being heard or being acted upon. Enough is enough of kicking a can and saying someone else has to do something. When you have these type of things, have someone there who can push the green light, because we gave you some tangible things. Now you either need to connect and try to form it into something live. I don't know, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to bring this much lived experience to the table like this, be willing and ready to go ahead and take action today. You know, start typing up something, or start getting some connections, start saying, hey, can we meet? Let's go ahead and make the next step. Other than that, you are really, I'm gonna land my plane. I just think that this is 2023. Somebody need to be having some light speed on this stuff. We're under the rainwater and behind the 8 ball for way too long. You could start with the life coaching thing. Pair these kids up in these households with someone so that they don't react in a different way. Do something. I'm passionate about this. It's just, I've been seeing this time and time again. Someone needs to know who could push the green light and have that person in the room to start pushing the green light, and have somebody doing some meeting minutes, some action steps. It just can't keep going on. It just can't keep happening. And I'll land my plane.
So I see a few hands up. I'm gonna go, Lisa, I'm gonna put you on the spot, then Shannon and Simon. And please introduce yourself and your roles. Go ahead. So it's all you.
You're on mute, Lisa.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, Connie. My name is Lisa Butler, and I serve as the Family Support Services Director with Oregon Family Support Network. I'm also a mom with all kinds of 4, with all kinds of different, I think we've touched every child and adult serving system over the years. And I just wanted to say, I chose to stay quiet while I was listening and honoring everybody's experiences. I think they're more than stories. You all shared just some real deep experiences, and I wanted to stay quiet to just make sure there was space for that. I've had a lot of space in my time to talk as a white woman, and so I chose to stay quiet. But it does make me excited. I got up and ran next door to my deputy director, because this work that and these changes that we're seeing here at this level, we're also doing at Oregon Family Support Network. And I think that it was Tori. I'm going to try to remember what you said, but it probably won't be exact. Was talking about the services and supports that are offered to diverse communities, and we come in and we go, oh, this is so great. This is what we do. And I think what Office N is wanting to really do is say, this is what we currently do. And, community, what do you need us to do? So we've identified that we can't just have this cookie cutter sort of white supremacy approach to services and supports to all communities, that we need to be nimble and we need to have ears to hear what each community needs. And that's what we're working on. I'm not with OHA, but I am an organization in the community that wants to support all families with integrity in the way that they need to be supported, not just what we already do, but we want to be able to understand differently, more deeply, and with integrity. So that's where my nods were coming from, Nakobe. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody and just really honor the experiences y'all shared today.
Thank you, Shannon.
I'm going to try to keep this short, but if I am rambly, I apologize. My neurodivergent brain is going like a million miles an hour right now. But I think that one of the things that I wanted to touch on, well, currently I work as the Healthy Transitions Project Director, which is a federal grant administered through PSU in partnership with OHA, and it's ending this year. And so Nakobe, myself, and folks at the state have been in a lot of conversations around how we can continue the work that we're doing with elevating youth voices at the state level. And so I want to echo what Cynthia said in the comments, that the connections are what I'm taking away from this, and knowing about the work that's being done for young people and families in this state is going to help us inform what our long-term plan is going to be. Because, as a white person, I'm not going to be the one doing specific like culturally specific engagement, and I want to be able to use the resources that are already there, who are already doing amazing work. And I will say, when I joined this this committee when I was a young person at 22 years old, there used to be this portion of the meeting where we would talk about our personal lived experiences as a young person or a family member, where it was sharing all of the shitty things that have happened to you, right? And now that I'm older, I'm 28, right? I did this for CSAC when I was a young person. I will say it felt kind of exploitative and it didn't feel good because there was no follow-up after. And I want to thank you for the emotional labor that you're putting in right now. And I will say too that sometimes, even recently with CSAC, it feels like the feedback that we're giving, it doesn't land anywhere, or there is not follow-up specifically. When folks from the state are coming here and asking for our input as experts in this field, it's frustrating and hard to continue engaging with it when there is no, like, what I would consider like tangible impact from it. So I just want to say, and I know that that experience is different than what happened here today, right? Or like my experience is different than what happened here today. And I can recognize that on a multitude of levels, but I want to say that you're not alone in that feeling. And I would really like to see more meetings where there are actual tangible follow-up steps from the team that we are supposed to be advising right now. And I'll also add that this was the best meeting that I've attended of this council in 6 years. And it was the most helpful. I feel like I'm walking away with something and more knowledge, and I'm still processing everything that I heard. So I can't say exactly what those tangible steps are going to be, but I feel very committed to using what you shared in this space to make the work that I'm doing and that Healthy Transitions and PSU and the work that we're doing in youth engagement, I don't know, have that like honor what the work that you just put in the last, what, 3 hours?
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon, and thank you for working alongside me in the youth engagement piece, and Sophia as well. Simon, the last one is going to go to you, but just to be clear, Shannon, I'm hearing a collective ask that the Child and Family Behavioral Health team that is advised by this group is able to provide some concrete, tangible responses to this specific meeting, especially for the folks who weren't here in attendance today.
I will also add that there have been other times where we've given feedback where I've been told that I was going to be followed up with by whomever was presenting, and that has yet to ever happen in any of the presentations that I've attended in the last at least year. So another just food for thought.
Yeah, Simon, and then I might be putting you on the spot, Dr. Wolf, but I'll let Simon go first, and then I'll let you, Dr. Wolf, be our final speak out.
So I was going to ask if the person who shared earlier about this committee of 20-ish people, how many of those people were representative of the communities in the demographic they were trying to help, primarily those of African-American descent? How much of your committee was represented by the community you're trying to help?
Are you talking about the Oregon Alliance for Suicide Prevention or the COVID-19?
Correct.
Or Oregon Alliance for Suicide Prevention?
Right.
I'm gonna let Annette answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Oregon Alliance for Suicide Prevention has a long way to go in terms of diversifying.
Yeah.
We do have, a number of people of color who are members, but I took this meeting today as a charge to action and really heard what you were saying there. And now I'm processing it and trying to figure out how to really do next steps. But there was some really concrete, like for me, the perspectives of people from rural Oregon too was really, really helpful for me to hear as well.
Thank you. So I asked that question because there's a saying, taxation without representation is, wrong. So my point is, a broken mind cannot be fixed by the same mind that broke it. And what I'm hearing here is even if we have these committees and even if we have representation on these committees, the barrier seems to be that when these committees are presenting to the people who can actually make the change, you know, legally, legislatively, and even judicially, it goes silent. There is no accountability on a requirement to respond. And it just had me think, you know, there's only one group within the minority category in this state that gets mandatory response and above and beyond accommodation. That's the Native American community. And you know why? Because they're federally codified a sovereign nation. That's why. And so it's almost like until something is legalized and legitimized on a legislative level, there is no accountability. And so I've been often saying that instead of trying to get one or two people on these committees, there needs to be a coalition. Like, say, for instance, OHA's ERG could literally be a coalition to advise and consult and give training to any group about pretty much anything regarding the community of African American children and families or you know, patients. But the problem is there is no law, there is no requirement legislatively that states that any committee dealing with these issues, basically addressing any data regarding these communities of color, mandates that it's absolutely must have participation with a coalition of representatives of that community. And I'm just really saying that until we have that, we'll continue to get this where we're having these meetings and we're sharing and we're having people show up and they're just ready to go. And we might even put all this stuff together and present it to the powers that be, and crickets, nothing, no response whatsoever. So I think we got a lot of layers of what we want to get done and who we want to get it done with. But the truth is, if it's not in policy and it's not in law that this is required, and holding the feet to the fire that they must respond, even if it's a no, it needs to be a response to just get the culture and the habit started, which has never really been, you know, mobilized and implemented, of getting the powers that be involved with the communities of color and the committees and the allies that are helping and support them to really get, you know, some movement, a process, a cycle where we can start to do that. Until we do that, we're just going to continue to talk about, you know, fervent discussion and taking action, but mistaking it for action itself. Thank you guys. Appreciate you letting me input. I really wasn't going to say anything, but this is not new. Appreciate it.
This is Cynthia here. I want to say something really quick. And I appreciate the question, Simon, because I asked the same question on the chat. So I would suggest that all the folks of color that have presented here today add your email on the chat. I understand folks are processing what's happening. So we add our emails on the chat because connection and follow-up is what we're asking, right? So we are all state employees here working with the communities that are being affected the most. So now it's really up to you all that can make decisions that will be sitting on those tables to want to connect with us. The problem is not knowing, the problem is to choose not to do anything and not to connect. So I'm going to put my email here. Again, my name is Cynthia Vimiero. I am the Healthier Together Oregon strategist. I work on the public health under the director's office. If you want to talk to me, please reach out.
Thank you so much. You know, Zora Neale Hurston says there are some years that bring questions and some years that bring answers. And I think that's going to be kind of my last thing. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to everybody who has stayed the entire time. Thank you to everybody who has presented and bared their soul and put in so much emotional labor and your family members and the young folks, especially for folks who have stayed past their time schedules, for everyone who has been in this space today to really start this conversation and continue it. Again, I am only temporarily hosting CSAC, but this is definitely one of the highlights of the work that I've had the privilege to be able to just facilitate in a space of. So again, I'm weepy because this is so beautiful and this has been so powerful. And I've been, even as a community member, when I used to attend, I've been waiting to see a meeting like this. So thank you all, every single one of you, for being here. And I am going to be closing this space and creating another space on Teams for folks to join into of color if you would like to decompress. So if y'all would stay on really fast while I quickly make a Teams link for you, we can do that. But thank you again for everyone. Y'all are great.